3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back. November, look at the 9th now. This is
I think it's the 6th.
the 5th, no, the 6th. What are we today?
I think we're on November 6th.
Okay, we are. 2020, and we're continuing on with budget and from this morning, and we've got a whole slew of topics this afternoon. And Robin, take it away, please.
Great.
Take it away.
So good afternoon, commissioners. And as you said, we have a number of topics that we're going to cover this afternoon. I'd like to change it up a little. I was going to start with public health, but I think we can very quickly knock out emergency services and Medic One. So if
Poor choice of words. Knock out emergency services.
we are going to wrap them up, or
Okay.
a lot of that too. I'm looking for let's start with the CPED policy requests. That should be really easy.
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen. Before I do that, you should have a new set of worksheets: public health, emergency services, CPED, and then the other non-departmental requests. And it's very possible that we will wrap all of these this afternoon.
Okay.
So, starting with CPED, the line item number 1 is a technical entry for copy leases. And I would try to explain this to you, but the better person to do it is Darren Bennett. According to generally accepted accounting principles, we have to book expenditures when we purchase capital aspects, purchase or lease capital assets.
Do we have this in our book?
Yeah.
We book the revenue at the same time so that we can show that there really is no impact to the general fund, but we have to book the asset this way. So line number 1 is technical.
Okay.
Line number 2 is the policy request, and this is for conservation futures. This policy request adds the $500,000 a year to the conservation futures fund to be able to fund the HCP.
Okay. Any questions, comments, commissioners?
No, sir.
Nope, that wraps up CPED.
Well, Commissioner Spencer's got
Go ahead.
So
Your time.
in my notes from CPED, there was an item related to increasing general fund. Oh, that's general fund. So we're going to deal that next
that'll
week.
come up next week.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm good.
Okay,
Okay.
so thumbs up for 2 items for CPED. I'm gonna color this tab as done. And let's move to emergency services. So all of these are for the Medic One fund. These are not the emergency management side of the house that is paid out of general fund. We'll look at that next week, but focusing on Medic One. The first item is a reduction to maintain an adequate reserve to meet cash flow needs in the Medic One fund. So it's $9,750 just to maintain cash flow. It's minor, and I would call this a technical change. Line number 2 is the advanced life support budget changes. It supports increased in professional services, contract support. And these are contracts with the fire departments, and their contracts include a 5% increase. There's a reduction element that is rolled up in this line item just to balance the fund. So it's my understanding that this is not the full amount needed to meet the contract obligations, but that the department will find other ways to meet the fund balance. And I'm looking at Denise and Olivia to see if you've got any more information that I haven't. No.
I don't.
Okay. If you would
Robin?
like additional information, we could certainly contact Kurt.
I do have a question. It says, the last sentence says the line item reduces in 2022 as a result of revenues and expenditures needed, blah, blah. See assumptions below. What were those assumptions?
I can pull those assumptions. Basically, when I talked to emergency services, they were expending at a high rate, and with COVID hitting and the kind of the unknown in general, they needed to kind of reduce some of their expenditures. So that's what this is. But they did have supporting documents. I will go pull.
Oh, thank you, Olivia. Okay.
So item number 3 is a decrease, again, to maintain operating reserve in the fund. So they are decreasing costs for extra help, M&O, and support of services for CPR. And Kurt should have talked about all these things. These are not new items. Overall, what you're seeing here is the spending down of the reserve fund. And what's been going on for quite a few years now is Medic One had a surplus in the Medic One reserve. And so expenditures in the operating account were exceeding revenue, and they would pull money out of the reserve fund to support the operating costs. Well, the reserve is just about exhausted now. And so what you see happening in these line items is they are taking steps to reduce costs to be able to stay within the confines of the revenue that they currently have. And one of the things that Kurt has talked about is the need to go out for a ballot measure to lift the levy for Medic One. So because the fund is spending down, and we could pull the fund up, that's probably what I ought to be doing right now, is pulling up the fund, the financial plan. But because it is spending down at the current rate, it can't sustain the spending. And so the proposals you see before you are decreasing costs. It's not like these are not needed activities. These are important activities, but we just can't afford them within the money that they currently have.
All right.
And Robin, that's really when it talks about see below, that's really what you just said is what it's echoing, and it goes in a little bit in depth, and it says some of the things that they're not being able to provide as much as they have in the past was It represents a decrease in some pharmaceutical supplies, medic unit fuel, communication expenses, and additionally, the reduction to travel and training means that the ALS staff, which I'm thinking is advanced life support, would not be able to attend trainings during the biennium. So they are not being able to provide the services to the extent that they were, but that is what they're referring to when they say see below.
Right.
Okay.
And this is their operating fund. And what you see here is in 2017 and 2019, there were substantial transfers in from the Medic One Reserve. 2020, there's a substantial transfer in. 2018, or not 2018, man, I'm going back in time. 2021, 1.8 million. And the expenditures really aren't going up. The actuals from 2018, 14.5 million. Just over 14 million in 2019. They anticipate this year at 14.3 billion. So it's not like they're experiencing significant spending growth in the last few years. It is significantly more if you look back to 2015. But they need to bring this down to be able to maintain the fund balance, which you see drops off substantially in 2022 and goes deeply into the red in 2023. So these proposals really are all about trying to maintain their fund balance at a reasonable level. They do add on line 5, 126,000, which is the potential cost to run a ballot measure in 2021 to increase the levy. So do you have any questions about any of these? Additional questions?
Don't see anybody
Nope.
jumping in. No. Hi, nothing? Give a minute.
I guess my notes talk about an upfront transfer from reserve. So and that's fine. I guess my question then is just to make sure I'm clear that by doing that, well, whether we do it upfront or after the fact, regardless, the reserve, which I guess I use the word reserve in my notes. I don't know if that's the word Kurt used, but the fund balance, which I assume is what we're talking about here, is in trouble, and the ballot measure is the only solution to that, or short of cutting back spending?
So here's the reserve fund. It had an ending fund balance in 2019 of $4.7 million. With the transfer this year of $3 million, they're going to have an ending fund balance of about $2.2 million. If they transfer 1.8 next year, they'll have an ending fund balance of about $800,000. The revenue that's coming into the reserve and the operating funds combined are not enough to sustain spending at the current level. So if you were to not approve going forward with the ballot levy, then yes, you would be in a position of having to make some pretty significant reductions in the spending in these funds.
Can you go back to the reserve?
Sure.
So why is it then, so does this financial plan assume that there's a ballot levy passed?
No, it does
How does
not.
it go from, how does it go from
Why you going-
800,000 at the end of 2021 and then jumps up at the end of 2022? What's that based on?
Yeah, it assumes that
It's based on no expenditures at all.
because they at that point, they will not need to have a transfer from this fund to the other.
Why?
Because
they're
I
assuming
think
the
I
vote
think
is
you're
passed
right.
up.
Perhaps there is an assumption.
Okay.
There's an assumption that there's an assumption that the levy would pass. The most they could continue to transfer out of the reserve fund is about 400,000 a year, which is just under their revenue. And the need in the operating fund is significantly more.
And then my other question is $126,000 for a ballot measure is a lot if we were, unless we were going to put it on a special election. That shouldn't be the cost for a August or November election, according to my recollection about the discussion about the courthouse.
So I agree, and I think that it's more than just putting the measure on the ballot. So Denise, you've got your hand up?
I had a discussion with Diana Benson about the courthouse ballot measure. And what I recall is that there were differences. Of course, there's differences depending on what election you go out on. But in addition, there's differences whether it's general fund or a non-general fund. I mean, obviously, she's the only one that could really answer that definitively. But that's my best of my recollection.
And so this is a placeholder. So if it's significantly less, if we do it, there's savings.
That's right.
Right.
And we could certainly put a proviso that that money is solely to be used for a ballot measure, and that any not spent would revert.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
So, do I have a thumbs up to all of the items, all 5 items on this page? One, I can't see Commissioner Edwards. I got
Yeah,
2.
he did.
He's got a thumbs up too. All right, so that's emergency services. 2. Now let's do public health. It's done. Public health. Bigger.
And we're doing social services differently then, separately?
No, it's one and the same.
It's all
Right, but I have 2 different pages. One says social services and the other says public policy. I'm sorry, public health.
So when they did the presentations, they are on 2 separate sheets, but the sheet that we handed out this afternoon with the ranking,
Okay,
there is only one.
okay, good. I'll make sure I got them. Thank you.
Services. All right. So line number 1 is for new environmental health communications policy and records coordinator. That would be a new FTE.
Yeah, I have a question here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
there were a few questions about this. Do you have the updated financial plan for Fund 4520, that's environmental health?
Let me pull that up.
This is the one that was gonna be covered by grant and revenue. I have on my notes.
There it is.
And what concerned me was the legal jeopardy if we fail to do this.
I'm sorry, what do you mean with that?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, what do you mean with that comment?
The last line, failure to fulfill these requirements places the department and county in legal jeopardy and can adversely affect parties of record. And it was covered by grant money and revenue. So that's why I give it a high ranking.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that comment. But the financial plan shows it will go in the red in 2023. I think there's
Ooh.
start going in 2022 is an issue.
Well, my notes from this show that there was multiple FTE requests from this fund and that this fund wasn't in a healthy position. And this was my least important of the different requests that were being made from this fund. So I'm a little concerned about this one.
Yeah, and I don't know if we received answers to the questions because it was a significant increase on the salaries line on the financial plan. Between 2020 and 2021, it was an increase of just about 41%. And that doesn't equate to the number of FTEs they're requesting. And that's what the financial plan shows. And looking at,
Let me see if this is the same one as we have. So here is an updated version that
okay, that's
Mark,
the updated, okay.
that's a little different. This one has a sustainable level. And let's see if I can find any other information. I know that Shelley and Art are both available if we'd like to have a conversation with them. Digital information. So the environmental health salaries over the last 5 years.
So based on the new financial plan, there is really not an issue on the end of fund balance then.
What's the difference between them?
Is the interfund payments. That seems to increase. Let me see if I can text if Shelley can join us via telephone.
Yeah. Because the interfund payments appear to go up, not down. The revenue goes up.
Gary, did you have any questions or comments on this one?
I do not.
Fund balance is better in the second version, but it's still going down by like $700,000 a year.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's
better,
still
but-
a long-term issue.
And they need to have a $1.5 million just to cover the cash flow.
That's
Let's
a
see, if we,
3 month.
let's see if we can get them on the conference call.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So Marcia sent me an email and she says that the revenue is continuing to come in stronger than the original estimates.
Is now joining the conference.
Hey, Shelley.
Good afternoon, Ramiro and Commissioners.
So I know that you're following on the YouTube channel this conversation. So do you have a chance to look at, listen to the questions regarding the 10-year financial plan?
Yes, sir. I am listening to that, following the questions, and I've asked Marcia Boyle and Art to please log in. I think Marcia can answer those specific questions that you have regarding the employee salaries and the ending fund balance.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us, Art.
Marcia, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, Ramiro, I have just unmuted myself. Good afternoon, commissioners and other guests.
So did you get the question?
So I will try and speak to the 10-year financial plan and some of the changes there. The stuff that's highlighted in kind of that peachy orangey color are the areas where we did make amendments to the original financial plan. So this year's revenue projections are a little bit higher. Things keep coming in stronger than we originally anticipated. We were a little behind on some invoicing, our solid and hazardous waste program, as well as many areas in our water quality are reimbursable based activities, and we've been behind in doing some invoicing. So I was able to find some areas where we had expenditures that we hadn't billed for. So that's the increase in 2020's revenue. For 2021, we did go back and we re-looked at where we were at. We believe that even though we've got some lower numbers in our food revenue, we anticipate that the other permit revenues are coming in stronger, especially if we have our CPI increase. We should be able to at least hit 2019 numbers. We didn't want to get too aggressive with 2022 and 2023 and out years, just knowing that we were looking at the environmental health fee study. And then when you looked at the interfund changes, I took the modified plan for the Amanda replacement. It was initially all in 2021 at $491,000. I reduced that amount and spread it over the 3 years, which is roughly about $167,000 per year. That's why it goes up in 2022 and 2023, but goes down in 2021.
So Marcia, does this plan assume that the board approves all of the requests?
Correct. This still assumes that the board would approve all of the requests.
And I noticed that the revenue, so here's the old plan and here's the new plan. The old plan had, I'm looking at charges for goods and services coming in this year at about 3.4 million and about the same for next year, a little under 3.4 million. But the big jump is in the future years. The revenue is increased for charges for goods and services by about $400,000. What would drive that? Is there an assumption that it would go back to the collection levels prior to COVID?
Correct, and Art will help me here. So it's mostly in our permit fee, so similar to what's going on with CPED in the building permits and those types of reviews. There was some reductions due to COVID, but there is some pent-up demand for construction and other things along those lines. And so we are assuming, based on September, which was record-breaking September revenue for us, and October continued to come in stronger than previous years. And so we're hoping we will at least get back to the 2019 levels. If you also consider that we have a built-in inflationary factor from, I believe it's the CPI, which is about 1.5% on most of our permit revenues.
And this is Art, and as Marcia indicated, when I looked at our permit activities that come through the Building Development Center, July, August, and September have been unusually high. In fact, July was the largest revenue for any month ever, as far as permit revenue is concerned, for land use and development related permits. August and September were also highs for those given months in history. And so there is pent up demand, and in talking to the folks at our Permit Activity Center, or over at the Building Development Center, they indicate there's still a backlog of things. The designers, septic system designers and things say there's a bunch of new activity coming through. So we're encouraged by that. And so that's why the pinkish orange colors go back to the 2019 actual. So we were thinking that we could sustain that for the next few years. And as Marcia also indicated, even though we are going into our reserve sum, with the fee study or cost study that's coming up, if we were offline, that would give us an opportunity to adjust. But there's also grants and things which are unpredictable, of course. But they're part of the reason we're asking for the personnel, is because we frankly have a lot of work and a lot of grant funding coming in, and we need the people to be able to do the work. And so I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but that's the rationale behind the adjustments.
Commissioner Menzer?
My question on this plan was that we were being asked for $400,000 worth of new employees, but the line salaries and wages goes up by 1.3 million from 2020 to 2021. So
Right.
I just wasn't sure where the rest of that jump was from, if it wasn't from new FTEs, which according to the sheets we had was about 400,000 worth.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If I can share my screen for a moment.
Sure.
I did do an analysis. Let me grab this share screen icon here. And can you see my screen?
Yeah, but it's hard to read, so you may want to zoom.
Okay, see if I can't blow it up a little bit more. Is that any better?
Yeah, that's a lot better. Thank you.
Okay, so what I did is I took the opportunity to look at what was going on in salaries and benefits over the last several years. And what I've tried to do in this first line here is just looked at kind of what our baseline salaries were for 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. And then I actually looked at what we spent in those years just to kind of look and see where we were at, just out of curiosity as well. And then going, okay, well, what's going on in 2021? Because it is a significant jump. And so I laid out each of the change requests that we're working on. So if you look at what the base budget is, so that's what gets rolled over by HR for the currently authorized positions, the step increases, the COLAs, whatever else is being authorized for those positions that have been approved by the board. So you can see that it went from 2,885 to 2.9 million. So not a significant increase there. The increases come from the request for a new FTE or the request of making a part-time FTE a full-time FTE, the temporary food FTE, which is really just 1 year as we've got a retirement, and so we're looking at double filling. Then the other higher level environmental health position. There's an FTE correction. We still are doing a little bit of cleanup when we created the new fund 4520 environmental health from the public health fund. So every now and then we find a little piece that we need to clean up. So that's just a cleanup. The big driver is it's kind of a technical correction in that we're trying to be more transparent and not show a double count in how we account for our department indirect costs. And so down below, I've kind of talked how it gets calculated. So right now, our administrative costs for Shelley and all of our administrative staff and all of our fiscal staff get charged to Fund 1500. We are working on a process by which we would then move those costs appropriately based on FTEs to the other funds. So it's not environmental health's FTEs, it's our administrative cost. And so in order for me to move those expenditures, I first have to have the budget authority. The budget authority used to be in more of those interfund costs, and it would technically make the county show the expenditure twice. We would first show it in Fund 1500, and then when we move the expenditure, it'd be shown as an operating transfer. So then it would show again as an expenditure in environmental health with a revenue offset to public health. So in talking to Teresa Wolin before she moved over to Public Works, we had talked about different ways to do this, and this was one of the ways that we had talked about moving forward. And so it's the first step in moving forward in laying out our department's administrative indirect costs across all of our funds. Clear as mud, I'm sure.
Actually, it
That
makes
was very
sense.
helpful for me. And if we think about the state laws regarding no one fund shall benefit another, it's necessary that we allocate those costs to the appropriate funds. So we need to have a cost allocation method. And Marcia, are you saying that prior to this, there was no allocation for administrative costs to your other funds?
We've been doing it, but we've been doing it as an operating transfer. And so Auditor Financial Services has been trying to push us towards not using operating transfers as much, but trying to then readjust the expenditures so that the county doesn't show the expenditures in two funds.
So it had been an operating transfer out of what line?
It would have been in line 59, but I'm not sure it got captured in 2019. It might have still been stuck in Fund 1500 as part of, then we looked at the fund balance of what got transferred to Fund 4520. Again, with Fund 4520 being relatively new, we're still finding those things that we need to clean up and make sure that we're accounting for appropriately.
Sure.
So you'll see when you look at this change request, there's an offsetting reduction in Fund 1500 in salaries because of this shift over to Fund 4520.
Okay, and I was going to ask you, so since prior to this approach, all the indirect costs were out of the 1500, since now we're going to be allocating correctly, each fund covers portions of the indirect Shelley salaries and all the administrative support. So the 1500 will have somewhat of a reduction of just about the same amount.
Correct. So if you look at the total altogether, it's going to be a net zero proposal. It's just how we're presenting it within each fund is going to look a little different.
Yeah, and I understand that, but the issue on the 4520 on this fund is if the board approves the new positions, this fund will go in the hole in 2 years.
Not under the new plan. The new financial plan that increases revenue.
I'm saying because if I think I read that we need a $1.5 million to keep a cash flow needs, and I think by 2022 was dipping below that level.
23. Yeah. Let me go back. So here we go. it starts to dip below in 2023.
Okay, 2023 and then 2024, even if it's more critical. And I understand that there is a fee study plan to address this issue, but I'm just curious if the time is right for the new positions, because it will put a future board in a bind. They must increase the fees to cover this fund.
Yeah.
I guess I guess that was my concern when we had the conversation earlier. It continues to be my concern because that's what is an expectation. The board will approve increasing on the fees to cover this fund.
Before you leave that sheet, so I kind of understand. I don't want to overstate my understanding because it's pretty tenuous on the accounting piece of it, but that's 579,000. But the starting number on the Marcia sheet was 2.9 for base FTE salary, and on this plan it shows 2.4. I'm wondering why there's this difference.
It says 2.4.
On the one you just clicked off of, the financial plan, the first yellow number, actual 2020 salaries, 2.4.
Right.
But then her sheet shows 2.9.
Oh,
Like see 2.5, it's 2.5 in 2019, and then 2.4, and hers was like 2.8 and 2.9. See, 2.9
Yeah,
and
I
2.8
see.
and 2.9. So those numbers are not. They're about $500,000 off.
Permission to speak again? So if you look at the 2.885, that's what has been authorized or budgeted. And the other document is what we're actually expecting to spend. We do usually have a vacancy rate. So when you look at that 2.418, that's what we're anticipating to spend. If we scroll over to the right, you'll see that 2.885 number again. That's what's been authorized. The 2.418 is what we anticipate we're only going to spend. So we'll underspend in salaries alone for this current year, $467,000.
I do.
So
Okay,
this
thanks.
column that I just highlighted in green is your current budget. This column here that has this yellow box for salaries is what you think you're actually going to spend.
Correct, Robin.
Yeah.
This is Art again, and I suspect that's partially because we have quite a few staff who are working full-time on COVID stuff and aren't charging directly against this fund.
Shelley has a comment, Commissioners. Shelley has a comment, Commissioners.
Yeah, go ahead, Shelley.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to address your comment, Ramiro, that our intent is not to put the board in a position to have to approve a future fee study. But we do believe that fee study is necessary to reflect what the true needs and demands are of this program in order for us to meet our county and department strategic priorities and meet the needs of the public. And one proposal that I have for the board to consider in terms of these positions is, because we do have an immediate need for these positions that will result in efficiencies to the public, that they could be end-dated positions to allow for us to reassess the revenue in 2 years.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Wow.
That seems to be a very reasonable suggestion, Commissioners.
What's
Can
the
I hear
timing
that
of the,
suggestion again?
What time?
Can I hear that again?
So
What, Shelley?
the suggestion was for the board to consider having the proposed new positions be the positions with an end date, a 2-year end date. So that will give the board the opportunity to go through the fee study and determine how that is going to occur. And then at the end of the journey, the board will have the option to extend, make those positions permanent, or perhaps not to extend those to this. That's the proposal from Shelley.
Okay.
So when is the fee study anticipated to be done?
Art, are you there?
Yeah, this is Art again. So my understanding is that, so CPED is the lead on that. My understanding is we're trying to get it done next year. So that way, at the end of the year, if there are fee adjustments necessary, we would be in a position to do that. So any adjustments could be taking effect in 2022.
And if we filled these positions, would the fee study then be based on having these positions filled?
Well, I don't, when we did the last one of these things, they ended up trying to break out as I recall, the positions that have to be supported by fee revenue and also the ones that are relied upon by or filled by grants, and they were able to make that distinction. And so the fees would then be set to support the positions that are actually doing permit work. One of these positions, actually one and a half of them for sure, are relying largely on grant things. We're over our eyeballs in grant work right now related to ELD and Henderson and whatnot. And so that's part of the reason we need these. The position with an end date obviously is a permit activity, but since it goes away, it wouldn't be incorporated into the fee study. I think, again, we're talking about regular positions is what they would cover. But I am speaking a little bit, I'm hypothesizing and going back on my memories from probably 15 years ago when we had the last big fee study done, but that's my recollection of how they get set up.
So that's my understanding too, that part of what they take into consideration is the current staffing levels. So if we were to authorize positions with end dates, the question becomes, would they consider those staff or not? If they did, I think that having a position with an end date either in or out of the study becomes problematic.
So again, in my recollection of part of it was, again, this is years ago, you end up looking at the volume of activities that are going to occur, you anticipate are going to occur, and then how many hours it takes for each. And so then you set your fees based on that, and then the salary levels then can rise and fall dictated by the work volume and the revenue that comes in on that. And that's how we've always tried to run the division, is recognizing, getting our crystal ball out and looking at revenues and things, and then adjusting positions as needed. So we've been, I think, quite good at that over the years, is, holding positions open, having to make tough decisions with people, doing overtime and things when we fall behind if we have the revenue. So that's how we try to manage those.
Okay.
We don't at this time.
I would support a end date on the position with a proviso that it not be extended absent adequate revenue.
Way to go, Ty. Good question. Good questions. Is that satisfactory?
So what is the pleasure of the board on this position?
I think we're kind of waiting to hear from Ty.
Yeah, because I rated it as high priority, and Ty raised some great concerns. You had some great answers, as did Shelley and Art. What do you think, Ty? Where are you?
So there's 4 positions that as I understand it from my notes and from the sheet, that are implicated by this fund. I'm prepared to vote for two of them and maybe a third one with an end date. I'm probably still going to be thumbs down on this first one. But I'm happy to be outvoted. I mean, it's just my perspective on, I mean, with this, with the renewed revenue projections, I think the funds, obviously it's better off than we thought when we looked at it a couple weeks ago. I was going to vote down, I think, almost all of them at that point. So now I'm softening up, and I'm willing to support two and actually 3 out of the 4 if one of them's got an end date. But
So Commissioner
I'm not
Macedo,
sure I can authorize all of them.
I'm sorry, on your proposal, do you have any specific positions that you have in mind, or you want the staff to give you some perspective based on your proposal?
I'll make my proposal, and then staff can tell me if they've got higher priorities. I like the program manager seems the most important to me. The temporary food inspector, I'm okay with an end date on that. The drinking water is a small tweak, fine with that. And then this first one is the one, again, I don't oppose this first request, but it's fourth or 4 on my list, and I'm a little nervous about the fund trajectory.
No, I just want to be, if you have the specifics in terms of the 2 permanent positions that you're suggesting in the third with an end date.
So did I answer your question?
Can you run that one again? You said the program manager?
Yeah, that's number B4012.
Yep,
Okay.
that's line number 4 on the spreadsheet.
Oh, let me go to Robin's new spreadsheet because I'm using my old notes from the presentation. So number 4, I'm good. Number 2, I'm good.
Number 3 with an end date.
Number 3 with an end date, and then I'm still need to be convinced on number 1. If Art and Shelley tell me that 1 is far more important than 4, then I'm willing to flip-flop those.
Do you have any thought on that, Shelley?
Yes, I do. On the policy level ranking request, I rated the program manager position as our top priority. And I believe that the communications position was ranked second.
Communications was what?
I'm not even sure which ones those are.
Ranked second on my list.
Second.
Communications is the number 1.
The communications is
number 1.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, number 1.
For some reason, the policy level rankings request that I submitted didn't show up in the same order on the document in front of the board.
Okay. Well, that takes care of the program manager. That was okay with Ty. It's all right with me. It sounds like it's all right with Gary.
So we're a thumbs up on line 4.
Number 4, yeah, line 4.
How about you, Commissioner? Okay. Commissioner Edwards okay with the approach?
Okay.
Okay.
And number 1?
Line, yeah. So we have 1 thumbs down.
Number 1, that is the, but that's not the program manager. That's the
That's the communications.
communications.
Yep.
That's the $99,000 one, right?
Yeah.
I assume that's down. That's what the proposal is.
That's what?
Okay.
That's down?
I see a second thumb down. So 2 thumbs down. And Commissioner Edwards, would you?
I guess I'd go along with it. I'm kind of curious if that isn't going to be the one doing the requests for public meetings, records requests. So who's going to do that?
Well, they already responded to public records right now.
So they've got it covered?
Well, I would assume that somebody's responded to public records because we have been
And-
responding for public.
And this would
records
just
here.
make it easier, is that what it is?
I would assume they just do an anticipating additional workload related to public records as well with policy and communication. So it's
Okay,
combo deal.
okay,
This is,
I'm with
this is
you.
Art. I don't mean to, we're doing their public record stuff, but it's coming at the expense of our other work. And so we're behind on the policy stuff, the being able to do update web stuff, to be able to respond to other public requests as promptly as we would like. And so we're paying a cost for the public records requests because they're essential. We have to get them done within the legal timeframes and be appropriate in our response. And so that's why we're trying to have this position do that as well as the other things that are indicated there. So it's again, it's like everything else. It's the public doesn't scream so much to have our internal workings and policies redone and as efficient as possible, but it's very important for us, or at least the managers, and I think it's very important.
Is that the one, Robin, number 1, that says communications? That is the program manager one?
No, that's line item number 4.
That's number 4, the environmental health. That's the program manager. Okay.
That's the program manager.
Okay, thank you.
So I've got 2 thumbs down, and it sounds like Commissioner Edwards is willing to go with that for line number 1.
I'm gonna go along with it. I mean, no point in me bucking the system. I guess I am concerned about the public records requests that Art talked about. I think those are important. And I know they kind of take priority. And I was wondering about an ending date on that with updating all the policies and whatnot. Maybe they could get that done and then go away. Is that, does that make sense?
If I may, yes, that would be very helpful to allow us to catch up and do some updates and some modernization of our records as well. Would really help to create efficiencies for the future.
And hopefully you'd get that done in a couple of years. Is that right?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if I've got a
So then,
second for that or
so
not.
a variation on the proposal of Commissioner Messer, that means that at item number 1, the environmental health communications policy and records coordinator to have an end date. Is that your proposal?
Yes, it is my proposal.
Is there a second on that one, commissioners?
We talking about a year or 2 years, or what is his proposal for?
Well, I
how
think
long-
Shelley said 2 years, if I heard her right.
You had said 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, as you were discussing all that, I was looking at the line item number 3, the temporary food inspector. That would have an end date. And that's 111,000. And when that ends, then pick up line item number 1, the program manager.
The item number 1 is not the program manager, Commissioner.
No, it's not the program. I'm sorry. I meant the communications and policy person.
So this worksheet, I guess I would ask Marcia if this worksheet already assumes that the temporary position is eliminated. It looks like it does. Maybe not.
That should be correct. I will go into Questica and double check, but I'm pretty sure we only put it in for 1 year.
Right. So the way this financial plan is structured, it already assumes that the temporary position that's proposed on line 3 goes away. So if you were to add another position at that point, then that would just be a further cost billed to the fund balance. And you can always consider that. We're going to do another budget next year because this is an annual budget.
can we authorize the communications person for a year and see where we're at? We're doing another budget next year.
You certainly
know
can
if
do that.
Absolutely.
If that
That should be,
person can get trained. I mean, I guess I asked Shelley and Art if that person can get hired and trained and be productive enough, or if it really needs to be a 2-year block of time.
our communications position for a year?
Yes, that would be sufficient. That'd be great.
But do you think you'll find someone of that caliber that will do it for a year? Just betting on the come that they're gonna be able to stay?
That is one of the challenges whenever we have temporary positions with end dates. 2 years is usually easier to fill those type of positions. But
Right.
my hope is in this economy that we would be able to find someone that would be able to do the work for 1 year. And we would hope that our revenue projections will be accurate in next year when the board reconsiders the following year's budget, that we would have new information to be able to support a request to continue the position.
So I would change my thumbs down to a thumbs up if there was an end date on that person, on that position. And then reassess it next year.
Yeah, let's do that.
so line item number 1 is that with an end date of 1 year.
Yes.
All right.
And that does look like it was originally proposed that way, does it?
No.
Oh, okay, good enough. No, I'm with it. I'm just trying to make it all work.
Wow.
The
Okay.
food inspector was originally 1 year, and I missed that. So that's all. So I'm good on number 3 as proposed. I didn't read that right.
Number 3.
We approved that as proposed, right?
Right.
Right. So just very quickly, number 1 is approved with a 1-year end date. So it'll go through December 31 of 2021. Line number 2, I heard an approval. It increases the FTE from 0.9 to 1 full FTE. So that's approved. Line number 3 is the temporary food inspector that it's proposed with an end date of 1 year. So my sense is that you're all agreeing yes to that. And then line number 4 is the program manager, which is Shelley's number 1 priority. It does not have an end date. It would be an ongoing position.
Yep.
And I am hearing approval for that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and then on the ones that do have end dates, should revenue look like it's going to be adequate a year or so from now, then we're going to reconsider. Is that?
Yeah, and that will be part of you.
That'd be part of the debate,
the next
Yes.
budget.
future debate.
Next
Yeah.
budget.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
These positions with end dates will absolutely be in front of you next
You
year.
got all that, Shelley?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Right. Line 5.
Line 5.
So line 5 is the LEAD program. This is $300,000 from treatment sales tax for LEAD, and you addressed this one yesterday. So it is approved. It's also got $1 million coming from a grant into the public health fund. So that's a thumbs up. Line number 6 is extending the end dates on positions that are currently funded by grants. This is out of the Public Health and Social Services Fund, Fund 1500. And the grants are anticipated to continue. The department did not book the revenue at this time because they didn't want to get ahead of that. And what we can do is put in a proviso that these positions are good to go as long as the grants are approved.
Yeah, grant dependent, yeah.
That sounds good.
Okay. That's line 6. Line 7 is for, it says it nets to 0. I don't see that the numbers, it actually looks like it's a cost savings on line 7. But it just realigns an FTE between the funds.
Seems to be a technical.
It is a technical adjustment. Line 8 is the allocation that Marcia was talking about. And this is where you see the impact to environmental health, that $578,000, and the offset in Fund 1500. So this is necessary to comply with state law. Line number 9 is for the fee study that you just had a conversation about, $100,000 to contribute to the cost of the fee study. It is a placeholder until we know what the actual cost will be. Line number 10 is for disease investigators. We anticipate that we will receive grant money to go along with this. And it's necessary in response to COVID, as is line number 11 for the HUD. This is the continuing money coming in from the federal HUD award to support housing during COVID. And then line number 12 is for the affordable housing program. This is the allocation of the new revenue, and the expenditure is to start to spend that money.
That's the $1406. Right.
Yep.
Yep.
It's from the diversion of the state sales tax to the county.
So number 10 and 11, they're both placeholders, kinda. Well, number 10 says placeholder subject to the funding coming in from the state on a grant. Is that the same for 11 then, you said?
I think that we already know that we're going to receive the HUD money.
Okay. So it won't have a proviso in it.
We could proviso that, but I think that we're going to see a lot of ups and downs due to COVID, and public health is on the front lines.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, as the costs continue, that Congress will leave public health hanging. Go ahead, Romero.
Line 11, I believe, is associated with the CDBG, which we have already allocated that. They have allocated already.
Right. Yeah, we know we're bringing in the grant on line 11. It's the line 10 grant award that's, what
expected. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine, though, that if the feds don't act, the state will, to support public health in the pandemic. So we have a specific direction for lines 1, 2, 3, 4. I heard no additional questions around lines 5 through 12. Is it safe for me to assume that those are all approved?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. Then we are done with public health. And thank you, Art,
Thank you,
Marcia,
Shelley.
and Shelley.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you all very much.
Martha. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Robin, do you want to get through the non-general fund? Is that what we're doing next?
Yes, because that would be all I have for today.
Has left the conference.
So should we do that rather than take a break, just pound it through?
Yeah,
Yeah, staff, does anybody have to have a break or need a break? Anyone? Okay, here we go. Keep going.
okay.
No time for an answer. 1, 2, 3, go.
What did I just do?
Oh,
What did I just do? Okay, here we go. Am I not all the way over? Okay, so we are on line 40. We're gonna start with line 40.
yeah, I saw that.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. And a big shout out to Denise, who has prepared these worksheets in very short order. So
Thank you, Denise.
very much. So here we go. Line item number 40, and we're moving right along, is the historic imaging project in the auditor's office. As you heard from the auditor, there is a need to preserve all our historic documents. This is the fund that pays for that, and we are trying to get them digitally imaged so that we are able to keep them safe and have them appropriately preserved for all time, or as long as they are supposed to be preserved. So this is temporary help to aid with the historic imaging project. Line 41 is expanding trial court. This is the trial court improvement fund. And by the way, I should just add, this group is random. So it's not all one office or department. It's not all a single fund. It's whatever is left that is not general fund. So you'll see me jumping around. So number 41 is the Commissioner's Office Trial Court Improvement Fund. And this is the request to expand trial court improvement for Superior Court projects. You see the list there in what they have asked for that they'd like to spend it on, including improvement at the FJC and the need to add a judge. This would address infrastructure for that. Improvement in the ability to manage their cases. They just need space improvements. So that's what this would be about. And there's money available in the fund. In line 42, this is the funding the request to pay for the historic journal that came in from one of your one of the committee members, yeah, on the historic committee.
Can whoever lets the historic committee know that if we fund this, that we've switched to a single year budget? Because he'll be very confused. They got $10,000 for a biennial, and that was insufficient. And he thought the commissioners were confused. And so we give him 10,000 again. He'll assume it's for the biennial, and we didn't listen to their request. So I don't know who communicates these decisions to the groups, but just make sure that they know that this was the full request granted that they made for the single year.
Thank you, Commissioner. We will do that. All right. They will be very excited to have this funding.
Oh, absolutely.
You bet they will.
Yep. Line number 43 is the funding for the large system replacement reserve to be able to go forward again with the new finance, budgeting, and human resource system, also known as the ERP. Line number 44 is from the Road and Transportation Fund, Noxious Weed Fund, a number of funds, and it is all related to the replacement of Amanda, the Amanda system, and what all these expenditures from these various funds do is create this $1.3 million in revenue to the large system replacement reserve so they can go forward and purchase the new system. Line 85, we've taken a huge leap forward, and this is it's okay. This is the revenue into the large system replacement reserve for the technology. It is a placeholder. 8 million would be probably the amount at the outside, but we'll refine the number when it comes time. We probably would not issue the bonds until late into the fall of next year, late summer, early fall. And, but we need the money to be able to pay for these new systems. And then line 86 is from the prosecuting attorney for the Victim Advocate Fund. They are asking for the FTE to be funded to be able to assist the victim advocate in their work. So this is a legal assistant for the Victim Advocate Fund.
And no impact to the general fund?
None.
None.
And that fund is finally in pretty good shape.
Good.
So once upon a time it had challenges, but they're doing, the revenue is coming in more reliably. So it sounds like you're good with all of these, and that's the whole miscellaneous list. And we are completely finished now with everything except for the general fund.
So give us a foreshadowing for Monday.
General fund.
The whole day?
The general fund all week. It will be general fund until you're done.
That's the motto.
And maybe on Monday morning, the board can revisit the conversation on the approach to the general fund.
Yep.
I think you already had some initial conversations early in the week, I think yesterday morning. So it will be good just for you to agree on the process as to how you're going to be addressing the request on the general fund on Monday morning.
Okay. So do you have more, Robin?
No, I was just going to say, I will go ahead and print this out. This is general fund in the order that, according to your rankings. So like the only proposal that received a high from all three commissioners is the addition of a judicial officer in Superior Court. After that, you know, there's a mix of things. But I can print this out this afternoon and give this to you so you can start to take a look at it. And then I agree with Romero, Monday morning would be the good thing to start off with as the, you know, the approach, what approach you might like to take.
I'll take a look at that during the game on Sunday, perhaps. Yeah. I'm going to go around the room and ask if Denise, Olivia, or Patty had anything to add before we thank them very much. Okay, thank you all very much. Robin, thank you. Romero, anything?
No, thank you, sir.
Wow, Gary,
No, sir.
and nothing from Ty?
I just say that I would very much like to see this printed out this afternoon so I could take it with me. I'll need a break from watching ballots trickle in from Georgia. And, I would love to.
And Pennsylvania.
Tape it
I
up,
get catatonic watching the TV.
tape it up your TV.
Yeah.
Oh, good grief.
Check this out. And commissioners, you're making excellent progress. To be completely done with all the other funds at this stage, it's just great. So, thank you very much for the work and the time you're putting into this.
The process you have laid out and having all staff available, even at the drop of a hat calling right away, is very helpful. It's a very good process you put together. And so we might even get Christmas off at this rate. All right, very good. Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.